Welcome to the How to Feel Good podcast, the show that's focused on, you guessed it, feeling good. But what does that even mean? The world we live in is full of distractions. We've been disconnected from our true nature and led down a path of emotional turmoil, frustration, and never-ending hustle. With so much pressure to conform and perform, so many of us have no idea what it actually means to truly feel good. It's not as complicated as you might think. In fact, it's rather simple once you get into it. You just have to forget everything society taught you, detach from your mind and body, and become the conscious driver of your meat robot. I'm Jenn Garrett, and for the past 15 years, I've been studying the human mind, body, and soul at an incredibly deep and nerdy level. With this knowledge, I've completely transformed my own life, and I'm now on a mission to help others do just the same thing. So if you're ready to stop feeling bad and start feeling good, come join me. Hello, you beautiful humans, and thank you so much for tuning in to episode number 31 of the How to Feel Good podcast. Oh gosh, it feels so good to be back in the swing of regularly producing this show. And I'm saying that we're like 2 episodes in because it really does feel good. Although it is more of a setup, like trying to get myself with the lighting today. I had some issues with the light and like the adapter. Like I have a MacBook and had to get this like piece to stick in the like in the MacBook so that the lights can plug into it. And then getting everything set up so that I'm in the right spot for the video with the right lighting, not too much shadow, looking cute, all of that, right? So there's a bit more setup, but I'm really like starting to get into the swing of it. And actually this week as well, I'm going to actually start producing my other YouTube content since I feel like I'm finally emerging from the cocoon that has been my personal development and like all of this shedding that I've been going through recently. Actually, and recently too, I've been starting to get into astrology and really actually understanding it. For a long time, it felt out of reach because it's so complicated. Like, I don't know if any of you have actually tried to like learn astrology beyond like the big 3, which is your sun sign, your rising, and your moon sign, right? Like those are the big 3 that people talk about, kind of like the surface level astrology. But when it comes to astrology, it's legit like the tip of the fucking iceberg, folks. Like there's so many layers to this shit. Like it's like layers on layers on layers. But the more that I dig and the more that I follow this path of esoteric understanding that I've been on for the last couple of years, the more I see that astrology really ties almost everything together. And I guess it makes sense though, because essentially the concept with astrology is very similar to what I've explained with human design and gene keys to a certain degree as well, because they're based off the same kind of system, right? So the reason why you need your birth information to get a human design or an accurate gene keys reading is because the universe is, as we are existing within it, is like a series of patterns happening over and over and over again, and right in different entities, including planets. Like everything is alive. First off, you need to understand that, like the fucking rocks, the leaves, the wind, the water, right? Everything is its own entity. Just because it's not a human or an animal that you can like see and touch and communicate with in that way, it does not mean it's not alive. But all the other planets are alive as well, right? So like we're in these patterns of these different themes happening over and over again. And when your soul enters your meat robot, in human design, they call that the neutrino stream. Like you're entering the neutrino stream. It's kind of like double Dutch, like to give that really simple analogy, right? Like the rope's going already, like, and your soul is just like, okay, here I go. Like you like jump in and like, then you're just part of the pattern. Or if you're not, you're fucked, right? So anyways, understanding my astrology has been just kind of like the icing on the cake, or like the cherry on top as far as my intuitive hits about like what I should be doing lately, right? I've talked a lot about this through this podcast and some of the other content that I produce, like very much in detail with all of my one-on-one clients and group coaching clients that I've had the pleasure of working with over the last couple of years. But essentially, like the big concept that I'm working against is this programmed hustle culture that's in me, right? Like I need to be doing shit. If I'm not doing shit, I'm not valuable. This is compounded by the fact that I'm a manifesting generator, right? And I'm like a fucking powerhouse, right? Like I've got definition in almost every center except for my solar plexus and my heart. And I've got like a million channels active, right? Like, so I'm like I gotta go. But like the thing is that if I'm going without a purpose or like a point, right, or without my heart being behind it, it's just going for the sake of going, and then that creates frustration and fucking resentment. And then because of the nature of my being, when I create things from a place of frustration or feeling like I have to do them, it doesn't come out very well. People don't like it because it feels like shit, feels aggressive, feels like I'm trying too hard, right? I'm forcing things, which is actually like a nice parallel to what I'm going to talk about today. But anyway, so learning about my astrology recently through a mastermind, actually the mastermind that I got kicked out of, as I alluded to in the title of today's episode. I realized that like starting on my birthday, I kept getting all these intuitive hits, I should say, too, just to back up a minute. Like I kept getting all these messages being like, just chill till your birthday. Take some time off around your birthday, just chill, integrate, like, and then that combined with the astrological stuff that's going on right now, we're really in a period where like the last 18 months we've been releasing, right? Anything that's not rooted in love or for our higher good has been coming up for us to either like deal with and choose differently, or a lot of people are doubling down and choosing that shit harder, right? So you're either at this point choosing to continue going around the same spiral, making the same choices and reacting in the same way, or you've been presented with all of these like same choices, but you've slowed things down and you're able to see differently and you're moving up, right? We're in kind of like a testing ground right now. So I kept getting all these hits to like chill the fuck out, stop pressuring myself. I'm good financially based on the one-on-one clients that I've been able to attain. And then like I still am cleaning some houses and doing personal training. And just have been blessed with like monetary gifts from other ways as well. So there's no like need, there's no rush, right, for me to be producing content in the hopes of like building this business online. Because really this is what I want to always, like, I just want to do this stuff. Like really my purpose for me to be super satisfied would be supported enough in doing what I'm doing so that I can spend my time reading books, like reading books, taking courses, writing notes on them, and then producing YouTube videos, courses, and mentorships to help other people have access to the same amount of the same information that I've spent 15 years and like a really nerdy level of dedication focusing on collecting. So anyways, I was getting these hits to like wait until after my birthday, and like I was kind of listening, but like not at the same time. And then I kept having shit happen. Like I got a cold, or like my sister installed some insulation in the basement apartment where I'm living, and it like I had like this allergic reaction, and like then I got my period, right? And then now my period came early again. Even it's kind of funny this week because I was like, okay, Monday, it's go time, I'm gonna do it. And then the universe. Actually, even on Sunday, I made a promise to God. I was like, okay, God, this is it. I'm not going to smoke weed anymore for a while, except on the first day of my period. Because as much as I love cannabis, like it's just interfering with the amount of I don't read as much when I'm stoned, right? I'll watch videos and things like that, but I have a hard time with reading comprehension when I'm baked. Probably because I'm disconnected from my brain at that point. But I was like, okay, God, like not going to smoke weed for a while. It's all good. A promise. And except for the first day of my period, because that shit sucks. And then like the next day is like, bam, here's your period. Let's get that over with now. Strange timing as well, though, because this Saturday is actually the beginning of a solar eclipse portal that is opening on Saturday and closing on the full moon on the 14th. And I'm going to a conscious, like, alcohol-free, ecstatic dance party on Saturday. And I was like, I don't want my period for this dance party. So, like, thank you, God. Thank you, universe. Thank you, uterus. Even though it sucks. You gotta love the stuff that sucks. But anyways, this has been a really, really long way of explaining, really long wind-up to tell you that I ignored all these signs and the universe just kept being like, stop. Like, you have to stop. Just slow down, right? So... and then learning about my astrology, looking at my birth chart, I have like nothing really going on from like Capricorn, so like Christmas time until now, except for my midheaven, which is like your fucking destiny is in Pisces in the 11th house, which means I'm basically here to be a spiritual teacher. I'm like, okay, cool. I guess I'm going to just like go ahead and do that without feeling weird about it. anyways, between now, like my birthday was last week, a week and a half ago now. And, oh wait, no, I guess it was only, I don't know. Time has a little meaning for me. I'm having a hard time relating to analytical law, like linear time, because that's not actually how time works. That's the only way we, the brain can understand it is linearly. But timing actually is just the space between matter. It goes both ways. Everything's happening at the same time, essentially. Like, the past is still happening right now, and the future is also happening. But, I digress. Between now, or I guess my birthday, and Gemini season, I have my Mercury, my Mars, my Mercury, my Moon, my Chiron, they're all in Taurus, and in the 11th and 12th houses, if you know, you know. And then in Gemini, I have my Venus and my North Node, both in the 12th house, which is so the houses are ruled by different signs as well. So the 11th house is Aquarius and the 12th house is Pisces. So if you understand the archetypes, you'll understand what I'm saying. But, essentially right now is go time for me. It's time I feel like I'm ready. I feel like I've come out of this cocoon. I've shed all of this stuff. I feel like this portal event on the weekend is going to be super activating for me as well. Because I've really been craving community. I've been a bit isolated, in my, journey the last couple of years. So yeah, anyways, it's go time to do the shit. And here I am doing it. Okay. So we're going to start to see more regular content. I've really simplified my plan, to just focus on YouTube for now. So bi-weekly, I'll have these episodes of the longer format of, the podcast. And then I also have a plan, lined up for shorter videos that I'm going to post on the alternate weeks. And then we're going to go from there. So anyways, today's episode, folks, is something that is very near and dear to my heart because, as you know, if you're a regular follower of me or if you know me personally, I have a number of unpopular opinions. I hold a lot of really counterculture ideas, and for a long time, I identified with these ideas unconsciously as rebellion against the system, right? This is where my rebellious nature came in when I had so many issues with authority. Really, I have never really understood or related to modern society, right? But when I was younger, when I was in my mess and especially when I was in my addictions, I just thought there was something wrong with me. I couldn't connect. And so I just thought there was something wrong with me. And then because I thought there was something wrong with me, that created such an incongruence, so much pain internally that's where all my addictions came from. Right. So, this is not new for me to have unpopular opinions, but it is new for me to be able to hold these unpopular opinions without them destroying my life. That's what's new. So, let me give you a little bit of background. These episodes, I like to introduce the concept with a story, right? Why am I talking about this today? And then we'll get into the sciencey stuff. And I forgot to put my laptop on Do Not Disturb, so hopefully I don't get too many text messages while I'm doing this because I don't want to start and stop again. That's just not how I roll. These are a one-shot thing. I don't want to be dealing with editing yet until I learn how to do that later this week. But anyways... So recently, I guess it was in January, the end of December, I joined a mastermind, a business mastermind of a person she will remain nameless. I'm not going to broadcast who this person was, but if you know, you know. And I'd been following this individual for a while, I think a couple years when they used to do human design stuff, and then they changed their business model to being an anti-capitalist, helping people build small businesses, right? Screw the man, here's how to be a solopreneur. Totally my vibe. The woman running it felt like a homegirl, legit. I'm I relate to this, right? So I bought into her mastermind, which was an online community, and then she did bi-weekly calls, I think, and then pop-ups and Q&As and things like that, right? Got a lot out of it. So first off, I sent this video. I've sent this link to this podcast to this individual. I'm not sure if they're actually going to be interested in trying to understand my opinion or not at this point, but I always give people the benefit of the doubt. So if you're watching this, thank you. Hi. Thank you for everything that I got from your mastermind. I really did find it super valuable. I got a lot of help as far as simplifying my message, really like the idea that I don't need to niche down, right? Because I've received advice from other coaches that saying that I need to focus on one thing. I'm like, but I can't think about what are so many things. I can't just do one of them. But like this individual helped me realize that my niche are people that like me, are like people who want to experience the same kind of shifts that I've been able to create in my life, right? People who feel like they're a train wreck or feel like they're stuck in a loop of repetitive behaviors that are destroying their lives and want to stop doing that, right? But don't know how or where to start. Like those are my people, right? And so there's not just like one, I don't want to be a niche account. Anyways, I got a lot from this mastermind initially, and then I did a one-on-one session with this person as well, and it went really well. They channeled some branding stuff for me that was like super on point, like even down to the colors. So very impressed with that. But I started to feel like maybe, I started to have a little bit of a gut feeling that something was a bit off based on some of the other members of the communities and things that I was seeing in the group. I was just like, ooh, maybe this isn't quite my vibe. Nobody really interacted with the things that I posted. Except for the person running the mastermind. And then I found myself just not having questions anymore. I was tuning into the lessons or like the calls, but not really like, not getting a whole lot out of it that wasn't already known, right? It was good to have support and like have things reiterated and have that connection. But I was starting to feel a little bit, a little like, I don't know. And then, so we had one call, like a check-in, and it was about like Taurus season, and they were talking about like how people who have placements in Taurus, especially if you have your Chiron in Taurus, you're here to like heal self-love and like teach self-love, right? And my Chiron is in Taurus in the 11th, no, it's in the 12th house. So it's like spirituality, right? Like spirituality and self-love is what I'm here to heal and what I'm here to teach. So I was on this call, and then after the call, I went for like an integration walk. If you follow me on Instagram, you see me document this shit all the time where I like walk around and I just am in my body and I'm looking at shit, right? So I'm walking around and I'm trying to, like, I've also been trying to really put like a descriptor to me. Like I'm trying to get, like, I've been like, what am I trying to say? Surveying my clients, right? And asking them like, what do I do in 1 or 2 words? So trying to come up with a title, right? Because I don't really resonate with being a coach. I don't want to call myself a coach because I realize I don't really want to talk to people. I just want to talk at them. And I say that with the most love. But like, my energetic type is not designed. I don't want your feelings. I don't want to deal with your feelings. You are the one that's supposed to deal with your feelings. What I want to do is act as a mirror for you, because on the 5 line, that's like part of being a heretic, right? I have a great mirror. It's a lovely projection surface right here. So I want to serve as a mirror, and I want to be like an encyclopedia of personal development, right? Like, you tell me what is the problem, in your opinion. And then I give you my reflection, or I give you suggestions on different avenues of things that you could pursue in order to solve that problem for yourself. But you're the one solving the problem, right? So I don't really resonate with the idea of a coach. And also, like, there's a lot of people out there calling themselves spiritual life coaches, and I just am not. I just have to go against the grain. Okay, that's not what I'm doing. I'm doing something different. So I was on this walk after this call, and I was trying to figure out like what to call myself, right? Like what am I focusing on? What am I marketing? What am I doing for people, right? And the term self-love guru came to me, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I like that idea. And so I get home from my walk, and I like go on to Discord, and I make a post in one of the channels, being like, yo guys, like, when you hear the words self-love guru, I'm like, this is my typing. I'm like reenacting it for you, okay? When you think of the words self-love guru, what do you think? Like, and then I explained basically what I just said to you guys, right? Like about not feeling like I'm a coach and this and that. And then I was like, but I don't know about this term. Like, what do you guys think of when you hear this? Like, is it something that conjures, like, is it cheesy? Does it conjure like culty kind of vibes? What do you think, right? So then it's like crickets. Nobody fucking says anything, as per usual on my post. But anyways, eventually, I think like the next day, the person running the mastermind responded and was like, you know what, to be honest, it feels a bit appropriative to me. And, you could definitely resonate or call it, like, use that internally, but I don't think you should be marketing yourself as that. And I was like, oh, I literally never thought of that. Like, I never thought of it being appropriative because it's such a common term. Like, I hear people, it's used over here, right? And then, so I respond, I'm like, you know what, that's fair. I never thought of it like that. And I was like, it's just interesting to me, this idea of appropriation, especially in this context and based on the work that I'm doing. Because behind the scenes, folks, like what I'm really interested in is studying all the different world religions or different like lines of spiritual enlightenment, like paths to enlightenment, essentially, mystery school shit. So in my spare time, that's what I do. I like research this stuff. Because I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel like it's a breadcrumb trail. That started with some downloads a couple of years ago that I started receiving. And I've been following the information that comes to me and finding proof in the tangible world, right? As far as the connections between all these different paths to enlightenment, and that the root to all of it is unconditional love, right? The best text that I found that like really embodies that is the Gene Keys. Okay, so this is by Richard Rudd. I've talked about it a lot. It's been, if I had to pick one text or one book that has been the most influential in my personal spiritual development, it's this book. Okay, so this book is a detailed account of how the human race is evolving. And that I've talked a lot about this, so this should sound familiar, folks, right? Like, we're moving from the lower band, the fear band density of emotions, which I want to add in, as always, is necessary and not bad in any way, shape, or form, because there's no bad, there's no good, there's just shit, guys. So, that sounds kind of funny, but like, shit isn't even bad, it's part of existence, we all poop, right? Like, shit is part of our experience here in the human realm, okay? Like, we're here in this 3D realm to have access to that band of emotions, right? It's necessary, okay? So, but we're moving from that as the velocity of our universe accelerates and our trajectory gets faster, right? Like, things are speeding up. And when things speed up, they get lighter, okay? When you're like lower density is heavier and slower. As we speed up, we're losing density, we're becoming more spacious, and we're getting, we're moving up the levels of the body, right? Like, I meant to write that down in my notes, but I forgot. There's seven layers of the body. I'm going to add like an amendment to this because like I forgot to look it up, and now the one line in me, which has a need for like detail, like very, very detailed information, is like regretting that. But anyways, there's 7 layers of the body, right? And like, we're all moving through this evolution. And the problem is though, that there are powers that be in the world, the wealthy elite, that are aware of this and have been working very hard for centuries in order to prevent us from moving from these lower density vibrations to higher ones, right? Because when we do that, we're harder to control, okay? Because animals that are not in fear, animals that are spacious and thinking for themselves. And I should add, animals that are actually humans and magical creatures. Like, guys, we're all fucking magic. We literally all can do magic, okay? Like, you can all do crazy stuff as long as you clear the static in your body so you're not fucking stressed out all the time and focus your attention on the intangible instead of just doing all the time. Remember the law of 3 of creation. For anything to happen, you need 1/3 active force, 1/3 passive receiving force, and then 1/3 of the force is literally nothing, incubating space, just space, okay? But our society has us doing active all the time. Go, go, go. We got to do. React, stress, right? All of that is contraction. All of that belongs in this one sphere, but it's literally taking up the entire triangle in our modern society, right? And that is because of the system that we're living in, okay? We're being poisoned. Our food, our water, our air, our fucking brains, right? The radiation, the EMF shit, all of that, the textiles, all the things I talk about all the time, okay? We're being poisoned all of the time. It's everywhere, okay? And what that is doing is it's keeping our bodies in a stress response. And then there is cultural and social indoctrination that is promoting and encouraging in-group, out-group division, okay? This means, this is a natural thing, okay? Again, I want to say that this is not something that's not natural, and it's not something that's not beneficial in some way, okay? As early humans, we needed to be like in our packs, right? We're not solitary animals. We need packs. And when things were more brutal, like back in like early times, right? It really was life and death. You get fucking shanked, like your village burned down, right? We needed to stick together, right? So like the earliest forms of racism are rooted in survival, okay? Like being afraid of somebody who looks different than you would have served you well as an early hominid, okay? So the powers that are controlling us, the cabal guys, okay, they understand this and they've encouraged it to continue longer than it needed to, right? Like, and then they also actively created situations like slavery, okay, and classism. This is the thing too that I want to bring into this conversation, is that it's not just black and white, or like it's not just people of color versus white people, right? There's all sorts of like white people that are also like heavily discriminated against. Let's talk about the Irish, right? Or the Finnish even. So like my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, is a first generation Canadian, came from Finland, and her family and lineage was massively discriminated against here in Canada. The Finns were like hugely discriminated against, right? So it's not just black or white. It's like, it's classism, it's in-group, out-group, and it's all a fucking distraction, okay? It's a distraction. They're using it in order to keep us fighting amongst ourselves. So, now I went really far into that when I didn't mean to, but that's the basis of my stance as far as this stuff is concerned, right? And so reading the work that I've been doing with the gene keys for the last couple of years has really showed me and like opened my eyes to the reality that we are all one being, okay? Where the illusion of separation has us thinking that we're all separate beings that need to compete against each other. And then we have all this shit going on, right? So we have this innate, like, these daddy issues where we feel like abandoned by the creator. We feel like we're on our own and that nobody's here for us. And then we feel like we need to compete against each other because we're all triggered in some way, shape, or form. And we're feeling like we are unsafe and we need to have those safeties in place in some way, shape, or form. So I'm like, wait, how do I get back to the original storyline? So that's why I feel the way that I feel. I should add as well, before I get into the meat and potatoes of what actually happened here, that like I'm no stranger to the fact that I'm a white woman living in a society that favors white people. Okay, it's not new information to me. As much as I just shared with you, like I come from, both of my grandmothers actually were first generation Canadians. One was from Finland, one was from Norway. So I'm basically like a Viking. I also shouldn't be surprising to many of you. Strong like bull. My other lineage, so actually I don't know much about the Garrett family because my dad's dad was an alcoholic who died before I was born and like nobody talks about him. But my mom's dad, his family are British loyalists. Like they literally came here and committed genocide. They owned slaves. They fucking killed people and took their land. Okay. That is my heritage. That my ancestors did that shit. That is in my body. It like when I really tap into it, it like makes me cry. And I don't want to do that right now because I'm wearing mascara. But I don't want you to take my I don't know the right word for it, my joking nature about this in the wrong way, right? Because I think this is a big part of what contributed to this issue happening in the first place, is I was seen as being, as disregarding people of color's experience. Because when I responded in that way, and I was like, it's just interesting to me because I don't think that way. And like, I really think that moving forward, we're going to see less division and more unconditional love. So labels like this won't matter, right? That was what my response was to this. So that was a really long way of explaining why I said what I said, right? The person running the mastermind responded and was like, well, yeah, like, but as a white woman, like, you don't get to decide what's appropriate. She's like, just because you've had experiences doesn't mean that you can call yourself those things. And I'm like, okay, I still feel the way that I do, but it makes sense. Like what you're saying is valid, and I don't want to trigger people more than I already do. So I won't use that term for now. I won't call myself a guru. And I started brainstorming other terms, right? What I've landed with is transformation specialist. But I digress. So So if this had been what the situation was, it would have been fine and good, right? It would have been like, okay, whatever. I don't necessarily agree with that angle of it, right? Because I feel like the whole white, what am I trying to say? The white allies, right? Like that whole white savior type of mentality, right? Where we feel like we need to really be, it's a drama triangle, right? Like we're basically, as white people, we harbor guilt and shame for being white people, right? Like I have a lot of fucking shame and guilt about the fact that my family owned slaves and fucking killed people. That's so terrible. That's fucking awful. That's so shitty. Like, think about the babies and the lives that were, right? Like, it's just, okay, wait, I'm getting emotional. The emotions are coming in and my body is starting to freak out and then I'm going to lose my train of thought. So I got to tune out of that, right? But really, this is honestly why I feel the way that I do, because yes, I'm a white woman. Yes, I have privilege. Cannot even begin to try to say that I can empathize with what it's like to be a person of color. I don't have that experience. I can't pretend that I know what it's like. Okay, I do have deep empathy. I have studied this stuff. When Black Lives Matter happened in like the beginning of 2020, I went and read a bunch of shit on white fragility because I really wanted to understand systemic racism and how subtle it is and how it pervades, like it's pervasive, like it's literally in every layer of our society. But what is the point of me existing in this world, in this body that I'm in right now? Like I chose this specific set of circumstances with the privileges and the challenges that I've had, because just because I'm white doesn't mean that I haven't had challenges, guys. Okay? And it's like telling somebody that has Crohn's disease, like, oh, at least it's not cancer. Right? We're all here on this fucking prison planet, guys. Like, Earth is like a school for us to learn hard lessons. So just because I didn't choose the lesson of being a colored person this time doesn't mean, like, in a society, I should say, in a society that favors non-colored persons, right? Just because I didn't choose that particular experience doesn't mean that my experience isn't valid, right? And it doesn't mean that I don't acknowledge the people who have it worse than me, right? But there's no point in me sitting in that energy, because all that does is it brings me down back into that fear band of emotions, right? All of the racial allies, all the people who are out there persecuting people who are being racist in their opinion, or promoting whatever, not necessarily even racism, but whatever issue it is, right? The people who are out there persecuting that are just externalizing their own experience, and they're bringing themselves into a conflict that's unnecessary, and they're lowering the vibration of the collective while they're doing it, right? So we're literally just playing right into the hands of the cabal. We're playing into their hands. The wealthy elite want us to be all competing. They want us to be fighting amongst ourselves. They want us to be discriminating against each other, and they want us to be externalizing and projecting our own issues onto other people so that we don't actually look within ourselves. Because the real secret to ascension or evolving as human beings is that we all need to look within. We all need to look at ourselves first. We all need to love ourselves and give ourselves everything that we are looking for outside of ourselves. We all need to accept that the experience that we're having right now is exactly what we need, even if it fucking sucks, even if it's super traumatic, even if it's not fair, okay? Because that is part of life. It's literally the whole point of what we're doing here, okay? We all need to do that. In order for us to evolve as a human species, we all need to look within. We need to disregard the social programming telling us that there's something wrong with us, or we need to behave or be in a certain way. We need to stop caring what other people think, in the sense that we don't need it to influence how we think. Right now, you don't want to be not caring about what other people think to their detriment, right? You can't be a heartless person who is like taking advantage of other people, which is a nice segue actually into what I'm going to read. I'm going to read you guys some stuff out of the Gene Keys, because this little breadcrumb trail that I've been on, like through following my intuition, as soon as I tap into my intuition, like ideas come to me. And when this conflict actually came up, I was like, oh, that reminds me of this specific gene key in my hologenetic profile. So I read it, and anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's consider that foreshadowing. But back to the original situation, right? if that had been where it was left, everything would have been fine. I would have been like, whatever, okay, I'm not like quite sure on this, but whatever. But then another individual interjects. And I don't know anything about this individual, their heritage, their background, or whatever. They don't know anything about me either, right? But they chimed in with this very long, aggressive set of messages, basically it's calling me an outrageously privileged white woman who is not really rooted in love, but rather using those words to manipulate, do whatever I want, and not care about other people. And I'm disingenuous, essentially. And I was like, and then like explaining to me what cultural appropriation is, which like, I get it. Like maybe it seems like I didn't understand it based on my responses, but it's not unnecessary at this point. While this is happening, I'm at a cleaning job. I'm like cleaning I have a regular job on Wednesdays. That's a 3-hour job, right? So I'm like cleaning. I'm like seeing these notifications going off on my phone. So I pop in and I'm like, massively triggered. Okay. Like one of my major triggers, or like one of my major shadow aspects in my chart, is alienation or feeling like people don't understand me. It's consistent, okay? Like in my life, I have consistently felt this from everywhere. But here's the thing, guys. It's part of my design and I created it myself. Okay, so I understand this now. I also understand that the way that I communicate is really triggering to people, especially through text-only formats, okay? I'm highly intelligent. I have a very broad vocabulary. I'm not afraid to use it. I'm also not emotional, right? I'm a sacral definition. I'm not an emotional person. My rising sign is Cancer, which is like nurturing, watery mother energy, but I'm at 0 degrees, which means I'm a baby, okay? Like when you look at my other signs, my Aries, I'm like 25th, like Grandmaster step Aries, and my Taurus, I'm like 26, so I'm like even more of a Grandmaster Taurus, right? But when it comes to the emotions, like it's not something that I do fluently, right? So often, especially through text messaging, or like this is like wasn't texting, but it was like DMing or like through a thread on Discord. When people just perceive my words, I often trigger them and like irrationally, like I end up having very volatile situations because people take what I'm saying and they interweave their own anger or like their own perceptions, right? Like so. What they take what I'm saying and it gets a whole other life. Like I don't honestly even understand it because from my perspective, I'm just trying to say that, I think I see what you're saying, but we're going to have to agree I just said to this person, I was like, we're going to have to just agree to disagree. Like, thank you so much for your opinion. I'm glad that you are able to voice that. I appreciate that. Thank you. We're going to have to agree to disagree though, because I knew, one, I was working, I'm like on my fucking phone. And two, I knew that if I tried to explain myself, it was going to make it worse. So I was like, it's fine. We'll just leave it like this. But then the owner of the mastermind goes and like hearts reacts everything that this person has said. And then publicly is like, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, standing up for people of color and like putting people in their place. Like, it's really and I was just like, okay. Like, listen, I wasn't going to say anything else, but like, I have to say, it's pretty disheartening to have my, my intent and my, what's the word I'm trying to come up with? But basically, to have my opinions publicly shamed, and then when I say let's agree to disagree, you're like, okay, yeah, but this person wins. This is a right opinion. It's okay, like this one, no. I was just like, okay, so then this person DMs me, right? And the conversation continues into the DMs, and it was the same kind of thing, right? Like, they sent me this very long message explaining their stance, that they, like, are the caretaker for the group, and they want to make sure that people of color feel supported, and that she can't have somebody going in there and flippantly, like, saying that other people's experiences don't matter. And I was like, well, what about my experience, though? Like, does it not matter that I now feel alienated? Because both of you two just made like all of these wild accusations and generalizations based on the fact that I'm a white woman. And assuming that you're more qualified to talk about this than me without knowing my background. I have a fucking sociology degree, folks. I did a double major in sociology and psychology. I also, as I said earlier in this explanation, have spent a lot of time and energy not only researching the concept of systemic racism and white fragility in particular, but also then doing spiritual work to undo the trauma caused by my ancestors. Like, that is something that I've put a lot of energy into, because the only thing I can do. I personally have not committed any acts of genocide or slavery, right? Like, that's not something I've consciously done, but I'm aware of the fact that my lineage has. So in my own personal spiritual practice, I've spent a lot of time healing that wound. And as I said earlier, the only way to fix situations outside of yourself is to fix the situation inside of you. The universe is a macrocosm to the microcosm of your being, okay? By focusing on yourself and healing yourself, you actually heal the world around you, okay? We don't heal shit by trying to fix people outside of ourselves or tell people outside of ourselves that they're doing something wrong, okay? That's none of your fucking business, to be honest with you. What people think is none of your business, right? You can't control what other people think. And actually, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of what happened during this DM session, but this person did say that to me at one point. Like, you can't control what people think, but you can control how you say it. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense, honey. But no, wait a minute. I don't want to be critical, because this person is just doing what they think is right, right? That's what it comes down to. Everybody that you have a disagreement with, everybody who thinks something differently than you, anybody who hurts you, whether they did it intentionally or not, is just a person trying to be a person in the world. Okay? Hurt people hurt people. Everybody's doing what they think is best. Nobody's setting out to be like, I'm a shitty person, I'm going to take advantage of everybody. Fuck you guys. Like, no, we don't do that, okay? Even the worst people, like, even people who commit, like, just the most horrible crimes, you have to look at why did that happen? Where did it come from? What happened to that person? What happened to that person's parents? What happened to that person's grandparents, right? Like, all of this shit is a cycle. We all choose the experiences and the situations that we're born into intentionally in order to learn from it, right? Like, it's not like anybody's a bad person. So I don't want to get into, like, talking smack, but, like, it was a confusing conversation that I had with this person, because I was just trying to explain. I'm like, I tried to bring in the gene key stuff. I tried to be like, listen, this is, all I was saying is that, not to say that racism doesn't exist and that I don't think that cultural appropriation is a thing, but all I was saying is that as we move forward as a species, there's going to be more of a collective coming together, and less divisive terms and, like, lines between cultures. Because ultimately, those lines and divisions are harming us. They're increasing the illusion of separation. They're making us all feel more disconnected, and it's cutting us off from useful resources. There's a lot of wisdom and, like, power in these teachings. Okay, now I want to add as well, in hindsight, like, post this conflict, I have done some research on the term guru, because I didn't research it. I was just like, it came to me. I'm going to see how it feels, right? Looking it up, there's kind of like two uses of it, right? So, like, originally it comes from Hinduism, right? Like, the Hindu religion. A guru, the literal meaning of it is dispeller of darkness. Okay, which is, I mean, like, I like that. But it comes from a tradition of spiritual, like, auditory or, like, passed down spiritual teaching. So, like, a guru is somebody who is a prophet or, like, an influential teacher who, in order to be called a guru, would go through a spiritual initiation and, like, have the title passed on from another guru. Okay? So I can respect that. And, like, knowing that, like, I'm not ready to call myself a guru, right? I haven't done my spiritual due diligence in order to earn that title yet. I don't think that has anything to do with the fact that I'm white, though. I think it has to do with the fact that I haven't pursued that specific religion or line of spiritual enlightenment enough to call myself a guru yet. The other line, though, like, and this is where I think where this all has come from, is that it has been westernized, okay? Like, you've probably heard the word guru, right? Like, it's like a thing that people use kind of, I don't know the right word for it, but it's not, like, got the same spiritual impact, right? Like, you call people a business guru, or, like, you know, this person is a childcare guru, whatever, right? Like, they use it like an expert kind of idea, right? So I can see how people would have the opinion that it's something that's been appropriated. But personally, I don't resonate with that, because I believe that if I homage and if I participate in the religious, spiritual practices involved with becoming a guru, that I can become a guru. And I think that more thinking like that is going to be more relevant in the future as people start to move out of this fear band and realize we don't need to be afraid of the other. We don't need to compete against the other. And actually, as a white person, like enforcing that against other people, it's just showing my own my own ego and trauma that I'm projecting, right? So anyway, so this person goes off on me, and I was like, agree to disagree. Oh yeah, I already said that part. So then we're in the DMs, right? So I'm trying to explain myself, but like the person that I'm talking to is not understanding what I'm saying. And I even said that, right? I'm like, you're not perceiving what I'm saying. Like, she just sees me as arguing, sees me as disagreeing. And I'm like, well, I do disagree, but it's not based on nothing. Like, I tried to explain why I feel the way that I do, and it didn't get me anywhere. And I was like, you know what? Like, it just seems like we maybe have some irreconcilable differences as far as the paradigm through which we're viewing the world. And like, maybe this is just it, right? And I think that they perceive that as a threat based on the Instagram post that they made about me and the meme that they created, basically saying that I tried to hold the membership over. I'm like, I'm right and you're wrong. And like, if you don't like say that I'm right, I'm going to quit and you're not going to have my money. I didn't fucking say that. That's not true, right? But like, wait a minute. There's no objective truth, folks. Okay. So that is true to this person. It's definitely not what I meant, though. And it was not in my experience at all in any way, shape, or form, right? So it was her subjective truth. And then she's made a very public post about it, which, no, I'm not going to link it. But if you know me and you want to know who I'm talking about, just send me a message. I'll send you the post. Anyways, it ended up escalating because like at this point as well, it was a busy day and I was like in between, I had a cleaning job and then I had a personal training client. And I was like at home, my sister, her kids were there, right? I'm like arguing with this person over Discord, trying to explain myself, like being like, I really am rooted in love. Like, you guys are discriminating against me. And they're like, she's like, that's not true, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, like, it just got really heated, right? And so then she ended up being, like, firing me. And he said, like, this is not a relationship I'm comfortable with. I'll remove you from the group. And I was like, okay, thanks. 'Cause I'm kind of a dick. Especially when I'm triggered, right? So that's that, okay? So this story is what has motivated today's episode. Now I'm 45 minutes already in just explaining this, so this is going to be kind of quick. Actually, you know what? That's kind of the meat and potatoes. Like, what I wanted to share with you guys, I kind of shared through the story, but let's go into some of the notes. I'm going to just go through the skeleton that I've got here. So, you know, nobody wants to be wrong or stand out in a bad way, right? Like, this is based on the primal fear of mortality. Right? We're not individual animals. We want to be part of the collective because we're safer in the collective. So in order to be part of the collective, you got to kind of think like everybody else. You don't want to be the one with the ideas that nobody else agrees with, because then you're going to be the one that's fed to the wolves, right? And then that is compounded by the nature of our society, as I have said explicitly, and I've alluded to in a number of different ways through all of my content. There are a group of humans who are controlling us like cattle. They understand our emotions. They understand the energetics of our bodies and how we are easily controlled when we're in a fear response, right? And so our society is designed to keep us sick, tired, stressed out, and afraid, okay? So we've also then been taught within this model, right, like to externalize our experience, which makes sense because when we're in our stress response, all you can do is externalize. It's not safe to do anything else. Okay, a mouse running away from a cat is not doing introspection. It's not. It's like, where am I? Where can I hide? How can I get away from this? Where's the cat? Right? Like, it's using those resources and it's vibrating on the level of the environment so it doesn't get fucking eaten, right? The same thing happens to us. When we're in that fear band, we can only externalize things. And then all of the systems in our society also teach us to externalize, right? Our education system has stripped us from our connection to ourselves and our trust in ourselves and our critical thinking capacities. Okay? Humans say this is why we have this issue, this whole debacle with the virus bullshit that's going on right now is only possible because for generations, we've been taught not to trust ourselves. We've been taught that you're not qualified enough to talk on this. And actually, that in the post that this person made about me, they called me out saying that when somebody else is more qualified than you, you need to shut up. I was like, well, who says that they're more qualified than me? Like, you don't even know how qualified I am. Also, what do qualifications mean? The whole system is fucking rigged, okay? Like, just because you have an education in something doesn't mean you actually know anything, okay? It doesn't mean that you are being that. You could ask me about half the shit that I learned in university, and like, I just memorized it to take a test, right? Now I am embodying and using, especially the humanistic stuff. I'm really getting back into the humanistic psychology, like the philosophers of psychology when it was in like a pure science before it was adulterated by Freud and his mechanistic bio, like behavioral type of model, right? That just turned us into machines, essentially. They need to be poked and prodded and like dealt with. We're all evil inherently. Anyways, our whole system is based on that, right? So when it comes to issues like this, people rely on feedback from other people, and in order to like, people rely on what other people think in order to base their opinions on themselves, right? Like your status is a direct reflection of what other people think of you based in our society, the way that we think of it. Instead of the opposite way, which is how it's supposed to be, where we like know ourselves, love ourselves, trust ourselves. And from there, we fit into the community in whatever way we're meant to, not is according to whatever the system says you're supposed to be doing, if that is landing. When we are not being true to ourselves, as many humans are within the system that we're living in, as I was until very recently, we create incongruence. Now, I did a whole episode on incongruence, so I don't want to go into too much detail here because we're getting into time here. I appreciate all of you guys who love this shit and listen to me like so much. I really get so lit up from doing this stuff, so I love it. Anyways, when we are in a state of incongruence, we're basically burning energy. We're burning the candle at both ends type of idea, right? So we're putting all this time and energy and attention into creating this avatar or this external facing personality that is based off of all of these externalized concepts. Okay, and then advertising has created our advertising archetypes that we're also trying to be, right? Everybody's trying to be something that they're not because they feel like what they are inside is not good enough in some way, shape, or form. Okay, that in a nutshell is why humans are fucked. Okay, so we can either repress that. So we like are unaware. For a long time, I was unaware of the fact that this was even going on because it was it's just how we do, right? That's just it's the blueprint that I was given when I was a child. Who you are is too loud, weird, and nobody wants to hear about that. So stop being that, and you have to be this other thing, right? So then you like start trying to create, especially those of us who are intuitive, empaths. Gosh, we're really good at being the chameleon, okay? We're really good at creating that avatar in such a way that it doesn't feel like an avatar, right? It's like, this is who I am. I'm this person, right? But no, you're not your behavior. You're not even your personality. Your personality is a set of habits in reaction to your environment. But we can either repress it, right? And this results in insecurity, uncertainty, anxiety, and indecisiveness is a big one, right? Because you feel like you can't make decisions, or it's difficult to make decisions because you have to think about what you really want and then like filter it. Right? You're not just tapping in, okay, this is what I want. You're like, okay, what would this version of myself, what is the socially acceptable thing for me to want? Right? Right? And that takes energy. If you're already somebody who's being like, I mean, we're all being poisoned. If you're like consuming products on the regular that are keeping your body stressed out, if you're not sleeping enough, if you're overworked, if you're consuming a lot of social media, if you're drinking alcohol, if you're doing drugs, all of these things are putting your threshold even lower for this, right? So you're always in a stress response. You literally cannot perceive the fact that you're creating an avatar. You just feel like there's something wrong with you. Life feels bland. It feels pointless. It's just like you're going through the motions. A lot of depressive episodes stem from this as well. Okay. The other side of that, so we either internalize it and have that set of circumstances, or we become reactive, right? And I definitely have been on both ends of this. So the reactive nature is like rebellious, destructive, anarchist type of behavior, and a good healthy dose of alienation where you feel disconnected from everybody, right? Usually there's more heavy substance abuse kind of in this reactive nature because it's so rife with conflict. The body is like, oh my God! So you need something to calm you down. Otherwise you just die. Okay. So I lived this for so fucking long. Like, and this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I figured out how to stop doing it, guys. Okay. Both expressions of this are based in fear, which keep us vibrating at the level of our environment, and unable to see anything but what we've already done or threats. Okay. Now, I do want to add, like, I could just go right into the action items here. Like, I've explained what it is, and like now it's like, okay, I figured out how to do it, but here's the actions, right? I do want to just share some information that I rediscovered in response to this conflict that I just went through. I'm currently going through because I just found out about the post that she made yesterday, which re-triggered the whole thing. But in response to the situation where I was like trying to express myself and they were just getting mad, and I was like, what? I was like reminded of a specific gene key in my hologenetic profile. It's in the culture sphere, which I haven't actually learned too much about yet. I'm in a mastermind with my coach, Alexandra Carruthers, super knowledgeable on the gene keys. If you want to learn about that sort of stuff, I'll link her stuff in the show notes as well. But next week, actually, we're studying this sphere in particular. But I did look it up a little bit in preparation for this episode. And the culture sphere is in this prosperity sequence, or the Pearl sequence. It's ruled by Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion. And essentially, the shadow of this blocks like what we want to manifest, or like, and it also stands for like how we work best, like the blueprint. Also connected to our vocation sphere, which is like what we're here to do for a career, right? So in this sphere, I have the 34th gene key, which is called the Beauty and the Beast. The shadow is force, which is forcing things, okay? And I remember when I read this initially, like a year and a half ago, I read this key and I was like, oh, this is why I have so much turbulence in my interpersonal situations, because it literally says in it, and I quote, like literally reading it, the shadow carries a primal quality about it. It's not even animal, but is far more ancient. It's simply a pure evolutionary force whose prime directive is survival, and its only prerogative is to maintain life within a particular organism. You would not even call it selfishness, since that implies an awareness that others exist. This shadow creates a kind of intense self-absorption that, when applied to modern humans, leads to brute power without self-awareness. This shadow, therefore, gives rise to a basic human law. At low frequencies, all human beings are destructive to the collective. So it doesn't matter whether you're in a low vibration because you're acting as a social justice warrior and you're standing up as an ally. You're still in a low vibration, and that's destructive to the collective. Okay? The other thing that I wanted to share, I remember when I read that part about like this selfish, it's like reptilian, right? It's like basically like a dinosaur, okay? Like the dinosaur is destroying life. It's like destructive. It like eats shit, okay? It eats a mammal, takes a mommy, dinosaur away, eats it. Doesn't care, right? Because it's just trying to eat, fuck, and live. Like that's what it's doing, okay? And like there's a lot of me that is rooted in that. And I've a lot of feedback, especially when I was in my in my mess, like really operating in that low vibrational shadow frequency. It was feedback I got a lot from people that I was like heartless, and that people, and it's really easy for me to cut people off, really easy for me to be like, whatever, and you're dead to me type of action. And I've also done a lot of things in the past that harmed other people because I wasn't thinking about it. But it wasn't like, I'm not doing it on purpose, right? This is the thing that is important to differentiate. And actually, in talking with my sister, her and I have a very historically turbulent relationship. And explaining this to her, she was like, I used to think that you were doing it on purpose, but like, I've realized that you're not. I'm like, thank you. I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just my nature, right? The key with this, so like in order to go from this shadow frequency into the gift, the key is timing. And I'm a manifesting generator, which means I'm not supposed to push anything. I'm not supposed to initiate anything. I'm just supposed to sit back and respond to what comes to me. And the timing, right? So right now is not the right time for me to call myself a guru. It's not going to work. It's going to alienate people. But perhaps in the future it is, right? And same thing even with this argument. Like, I had to really stop myself from continuing it on and just dropped it. Even especially when I saw that post last night, I was like, excuse me? No, that's not how this happened. But it doesn't matter, because if I try to explain it and or defend myself, it's just going to make it worse, right? So I just need to sit back, surrender to it, and let them be wrong about me, because to them, they're right. It's their subjective truth. So I'm going to let them have that experience, knowing, and I think that's why I read this here, because knowing that this is just who I am, and it's not my fault that they got upset in that way. I just need to be mindful of the fact that the way I communicate through text can be perceived this way. The other thing I wanted to mention in this, I guess I already kind of said that. There's another paragraph I was going to read that basically says that the shadow tends to infuriate other people since they can't understand how you could be so blind to outside influence. It often seems to others as though you are behaving in an inhumane or foolish manner. This frequently results in some kind of challenge or complaint from the other person, which may take you by surprise. It literally does. If you cannot maintain your frequency at a certain level, this kind of interference from others can create unwanted, volatile situations in your life. If you're trying or forcing something, you will continually meet resistance from others. The 34th gene key is unaware of itself, even at the highest levels. So it's not a matter of changing yourself. It's simply about doing the right activity at the right time. So I was like, okay, I read that part to my sister this morning, and she was like, yeah, that makes sense. So the last thing that I wanted to share from this particular key that I found very ironic is when it got into the gift, which is strength. Again, it's unaware of itself, right? But it's all about physical embodiment, actually, in this specific key. And it talks about how people with this gift, it's a physical archetype. So they have a deep connection to activities involving physical movement, like dance, sport, which makes sense. How I lift weights. I love primal movements. I love balance type stuff. I love dancing, intuitive, ecstatic dance is a huge part of my practice. But it says here that people who have this gift tend to excel in anything where an individual, the word individual can rise above the rest of the collective, right? Mastery of human movement and such, right? So let me just see here where I don't want to read this whole thing. So it says mastery of human movement actually only emerges when awareness has withdrawn, leaving simply an intense self-assurance, which is the programming partner of the 20th gift. The 34th gift can be demonstrated in a myriad of fields of human endeavor, that is any area in which an individual rises above the common man. These people become our icons and gurus in business, sport, war, and sometimes government. There is a kind of primal power at work within such people, and it is impossible for others to miss it. In a world where lower frequencies dominate, true inner strength never goes unnoticed. It fucking says the word that they're giving me a hard time about in the description of this book in a spiritual text, outlining the evolution of the human species. And it says if you have this gift, you are likely to be a guru. So what the fuck? I'm thank you, God. Okay, thank you. As much as I don't need that external gratification or external support for my opinion, it sure is nice that I have this internal compass that directs me to information that really reinforces what I'm thinking, right? So that it doesn't matter what other people think. I'm allowed to have a different opinion because I know it's true, and I know that there's no objective truth. So what's true to me is the only thing that matters. So I just wanted to share that piece. It's also connected to, this sphere is connected to the vocation sphere, which for me is the 55th gene key. I also have that in my attraction. So I have the 55th gene key twice in my chart. And if you know about the gene keys and if you've read the 55th gene key, you understand that everything that I'm saying is rooted in my design, okay? The 55th gene key is a 30-page key. Most of them are 2 to 4 pages. This one is 30 pages long, and it documents how we are evolving physically from lower density beings to lighter beings. Like eventually, like distant future, we're not going to have sexual needs. In the future, we're not going to have need for food, especially meat, right? Like we don't need to eat other animals as we evolve, right? So I just think it's super interesting that is what I was talking about, and that's what my design is, right? Like that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help usher in this movement from the lower fear band into the higher fear band. But I don't think that I'm supposed to do it through Discord threads, through text. That's not how it works, right? What I have to do, like that's forcing something, right? That's working against my natural rhythm and trying to make somebody believe what I believe. But what I really need to do is just be that, right? So I feel like I'm actually fucking stoked, guys. I literally I feel like I was presented with a huge test and I passed. And like, not only did I pass, but I fucking like passed with flying colors. Like I feel so good about myself because it triggered me. Definitely triggered me. But instead of like having the trigger happen, because when we're triggered, what happens is our body reacts, right? And then the body tells your brain that something's wrong. And if you're not aware of that and able to stop it and like detach yourself from your body and your mind, and bring yourself either into your solar plexus, your heart, or like an etheric level where you're observing yourself above yourself, you just are swept away in it, right? You feel attacked. You feel like you need to be defensive, right? Like, so you then go into, like closed-mindedness, essentially. You're not able to see anything other than what you already think. And this is how we end up with this conflict. And then this is how we perpetuate the clusterfuck that is our human society. Okay? So, action time, folks. Here are some ways that you can learn how to hold an uncomfortable or unpopular opinion and not have it destroy your life, okay? The first thing, I feel like I say this every single episode, but it's because it's the first step. Okay. I just was actually brushing up on some humanistic psychology, as I mentioned a little while ago. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a great thing to look up if you want to understand why I say what I say about the action items. Okay. So in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, your basic needs like food, shelter, like things that keep you alive. Then you have safety. You need to feel safe. Then you need relationships and connection. Then you need, what's the top one? I think, it's development, relationship with yourself. And then it is love and respect for yourself. And then self-actualization, which is connecting with your higher purpose. You can't connect with your higher purpose. Like you can't start at the top of the pyramid. You have to satisfy each layer of this to build the base first. Right? So the reason why the first action item I give on every single episode is clear the static in your body is because you can't do shit when you're fucking triggered. You can't do anything other than what you've already done and pick fights or defend yourself. Or go into negative coping mechanisms, right? That's the only thing you can do. So I'm not going to go through that shit again. I say it every single episode. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, please go back and listen to some of the earlier episodes, or even recently. I think I went into a pretty good detail the last 2 episodes about how to clear the static in your body. Okay? And shadow work. That part is really important as well, because you need to be able to accept yourself as a whole, complete, beautiful being, even if you're a fucking train wreck. Okay? Because there's nothing wrong with being a train wreck. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. There's nothing wrong with screwing your life up. Okay? Because that's what you're here to do. Who says it's screwed up? Who says that? Who's the decider of that? Right? It's almost like we're living in a society that wants us to feel bad about ourselves so that we buy shit, folks. Almost. Okay, so clear static, shadow work. The next thing is that you have to be okay with conflict and triggering people. You have to understand that somebody being upset is not your fault. Okay, you are not responsible for how somebody feels. Somebody can't take offense to what you're saying or be offended. Shit, I fucked that up. So nobody can be offended by what you're saying without taking offense. You can't control how other people perceive you. The harder you try, the worse it gets, in my experience anyways. This seems to be the thing, right? This situation was me trying to explain myself, and it just went way off the rails, right? Somehow me trying to explain what I just said for the last hour through text made them further entrenched in their beliefs that I'm racist and that I don't care about other people's experience, right? So that's not my fault. That's their perception, right? But it's also not their fault. I want to make that distinction, okay? It's not like they're wrong and you're right, because there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. In their experience, they're right. And in my experience, I'm right. Okay, so you have to just understand that and know that you don't need that external gratification in order to feel right or true in what you're doing. Okay. Now, what helps with that is actively making yourself feel safe. Okay, when you feel unsafe or you feel disconnected from your peers or society or your family or whatever, you don't have close relationships that support you, it's much harder to not give a fuck about what other people think because you have that primal fear within you that's telling you you're going to fucking die if you don't fit in. Okay, so you need to understand and you need to understand how to make yourself feel good, right? So I do a lot of work on integrating the different aspects of myself that have been fragmented, right? So when I feel myself triggered, there's like an aspect of myself that is like doing that to keep me safe. So I'll go within myself, find the aspect that is feeling triggered and like give it love. A lot of times it's inner child stuff, right? Like I go in and there's like a version of me that's like in a little ball, like crying, right? And I go in and I'm like, it's okay, Jen, I got you. I love you. And like I say it in the third person. Whoops. I don't say like, I'm good. I say, you're good, honey. I love you. You're good. You're safe. I got you, right? Like I repeat that stuff to myself and I hold myself at the same time. Might sound crazy, but if you're listening to this podcast this far along at this point, you're obviously into it. So fucking try it. Okay. And like be there for yourself. Build your self-efficacy by setting realistic minimum baselines for your productivity and sticking to them, right? Like be impeccable with your word, like in the words of Don Miguel Ruiz. So white. I just like can't pronounce names. But be impeccable with your word, right? Don't say shit that you don't mean. If you say something, fucking do it, right? Like when you say something, you break a promise to yourself or somebody else, it just makes you feel bad about yourself internally, whether it's conscious or not, right? You're lowering your self-efficacy, which is your belief in your ability to do things. And that lowers your overall opinion of yourself. And it makes it much harder to love the shit out of yourself. Okay. Then another thing you can do is to broaden your intellectual horizons. Now, you don't have to be a giant nerd like me in order to do this, right? But please stop watching the news and stop getting your news from Facebook, Meta, whatever, right? Like there's two companies that own all of the media, okay? BlackRock and Vanguard. BlackRock is owned by Larry Fink, and nobody knows who's in Vanguard, but it's probably the fucking Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Bushes and all those old money tycoons who are using us like commodities, okay? They've siphoned all the money from the bottom, and now they need to kill us off because there's too many humans, okay? So if you take your news from those sources, they're going to be fear-mongering you because they want you to be afraid because you're easier to control when you're afraid. So please stop paying attention to mainstream media, and that includes all these fucking trends as far as divisiveness and reasons to be upset with people outside of yourself, okay? You don't need to be upset about anything outside of yourself. You actually don't even need to be upset about anything. You need to just accept everything as it is. So that's another thing. Adopt a neutral paradigm. Okay? Understand that you're not here to have fucking rainbows and pots of gold like coming out of your butt. Okay? That's not what this is about. This is a prison planet that's here for you to learn from. Okay? So you need to appreciate the shit when it happens to you because from that place, that's how you actually attract more pleasant experiences in. You can't, if you're full and you're overwhelmed and everything sucks, you're just going to keep having that sucky experience. But if you can accept where you're at for what it is, and what it is beautiful, even if it sucks. If you are in that place of legit, open, expansive excitement and like for whatever you're doing, that's how you actually attract a better life. Okay. So adopting a neutral paradigm is a necessary part of this. And like another way you can build your self-efficacy outside of like being impeccable with your word and like having realistic minimum baselines is the use of positive affirmations and tapping. Okay, I'm going to do a YouTube video on tapping, but it's essentially like physiological acupuncture. So you like say something while you're tapping yourself. So one thing that I've been working on is this mantra of I'm wealthy and free. And I always start it with, even though it hasn't presented itself yet, I am wealthy and I'm free to do as I please. So I go through that. I say that phrase. I'm like, even though it hasn't presented itself yet, I'm wealthy and free to do as I please. Even though it hasn't presented itself yet, I'm wealthy and free to do as I please. even though it hasn't presented itself yet, I'm healthy. So like for those of you not watching the video version of this, I'm literally tapping different points. You like top of your head, above your eyebrows, under your eyes, on your temples, top of your lip, bottom of your chin. I do my lymph nodes here as well. Lymph nodes in the armpit, heart, top of your hand, like your thumb, meaty part of your thumb, and then the bottom part of your, right? And then you do it, so you say the full phrase, and then I do it again, saying wealthy and free, wealthy and free, wealthy and free, right? And you can, what you're doing is you're giving more resonance to the words. The words themselves are just thoughts, right? Which do have power in and of themselves. But if you're trying to introduce like a particularly far stretch of an affirmation, often the incongruence is too significant to actually have any weight, right? Like this is what my experience was with affirmations when I first started trying to do them. I was like, I don't really believe this, so it didn't work, right? So by adding in the element of the tapping, it brings you into your body, so you're in your experience, so there's less undermining, I should say, negative self-talk, like undermining the affirmations, okay? So I'm going to create a video on tapping, as I said, for YouTube, but there's a lot of them already on YouTube. So if you want to look that up, on Instagram, there's somebody I follow called Gala Darling, who's like this babe with like pink hair. She's like the manifestation queen. She's all about tapping. So I'm sure she's got some great resources that you could find as well. And then the last point here to wrap this up in a nice little bow. Essentially, folks, when you love yourself and you feel safe, you can think and do whatever the fuck you want. Okay, so that's how you hold an uncomfortable or unpopular opinion without it destroying your life. Ultimately, you are only able to do that if you love the shit out of yourself, by accepting yourself as a whole, beautiful being in the mess that you are, and giving yourself the safety, like protecting yourself, being there for yourself, and actively having your own back. Okay, so I hope you got something from this episode. It was extremely cathartic for me to share this story with you. As I said, I am feeling supercharged. I feel like I passed a test. I feel like I am evolving out of that fear band where I could have like really gone into it, especially reading, like I said, not to bring it up again, but reading that Instagram post really made me mad. It's like, that's not true. But like, whatever. That's what she thinks. That's what her, and then there's all these comments like reinforcing it. I'm like, okay, in a previous life, I would have like been all up in that post and been like, blah, 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 right? You guys are wrong. I'm fucking right. Screw you. But I was like, okay. I sent it to a few people that I know to be like, whoa. And they're like, and that's it, right? So I hope you got something out of this episode. I really appreciate all of you guys for listening. I do have some openings. I got 2 spaces left for one-on-one coaching. Oh, I lost my flow. I forgot I say these things at the beginning of the episode because, like, who listens to the end of the episodes? If you're listening, I love you even more than the rest of the people who already tuned out. So this is a special extra love for you. But anyways, if you are somebody who is ready to transform, really ready to get uncomfortable and like move out of that fear band so you can evolve as a human, become connected to your magical powers because you have them. I have spaces for 2 one-on-one clients right now at the pricing that I'm offering currently, and it will be going up after I fill these 2 spaces. So if you are motivated to change and you want to work with me, now is the time. Hit me up in the link in the show notes. And until next week, I hope you feel good and have fun, even when you're triggered and people are saying you're a racist. Love you. Bye.